Hi, everyone. My name is George Abraham, and I am editor at large for Mizna and the lead editor for Mizna's Catastrophe issue, the latest summer 2024 volume that we are celebrating tonight. Um, Welcome to this special edition of Words for Palestine, a co sponsored event with Radius of Arab American Writers, Rawi, the Arab American National Museum, Palestine Rights, Al Nadwa Society, and Sukun Magazine, which we have been doing for now over a year. And it's been a monthly donation focused, mutual aid focused uh, uh, literary reading in solidarity with Palestine and the ongoing devastation, which sadly has not ended, even though there is a very fragile, already broken ceasefire. Um, we are with our people in Gaza. We are with our people in Sudan. We are with all of our communities from Lebanon to Syria to Yemen, everyone who is in mourning, everyone who is enraged, and holding all of that. And it is an honor today to be here with some amazing writers from this gorgeous Catastrophe issue volume. Um, to it's just really interesting, I guess, having edited a volume in a time of genocide, multiple escalating genocides. One thing that I guess I'm returned to is the way that art is can become a gathering ground, can become a space to hold grief, can become as some kind of necessary. Sadly, like it's really sad that it takes catastrophe to get us talking again, to get us all converging again. But the process of editing this volume really, I think, returned so many people to my sphere and returned so many folks, within business sphere to each other. And so it's an honor to just be, to be presenting just a very, very small fragment of the brilliance of all these contributors in this issue. Um, and so, without further ado, I will be introducing tonight's first poet. The poets will be reading in this order: Yahya Ashour, Ruba El Melik, Olivia Elias, Leila Mansouri, Nyla Matuk, and Nadia Shammas. I will first introduce Habibi Yahya Ashour. Yahya Ashour is an exiled Ghazawi Palestinian poet, an awarded author born in 1998 based in the US. He is a Mizna Fellow and an honorary fellow at the University of Iowa and author of the ebook A Gaza of Siege and Genocide that Mizna published. Ashour's portfolio includes poetry collections, children books in Arabic, and contributions to anthologies and journals, including MQR and Arab Lit. He has received multiple scholarships and fellowships and has read at more than 50 U.S. organizations and universities, including Princeton, Stanford, UPenn, and UCLA. His poetry has been translated into Spanish, French, Japanese, Bengali, among many other languages. Ashour studied psychology and sociology and worked as a creative writing mentor. And I want to also further say that Yahya Ashour is editing a special folio that Mizna is going to be publishing this coming fall 2025, a special folio for Gaza with a full editorial team by, for, and with Ghazawi. And so many U.S. projects that have emerged of Poets for Palestine this, Poets for Palestine that, have failed to put our kin from Gaza in the editorial seat. And Yahya is making this intervention into the field with us, which is amazing. And it's just been an honor to become Yahya's friend over this really hellish time. So I'm really honored to introduce Yahya Ashour.
Thank you so much, George. Um, it's an honor to be here with you. Um, I'm gonna start with the poem that is included um, in the issue, the catastrophe issue, and then read some other poems that I wrote around the same time that I wrote that poem. Um, Gaza and despair. O sky, where were you when our homes were being shelled? O sea, where were you when our bodies were being charred? The next poem is called those tears, these few tears of mine. I always wished the breeze would breathe me in. The sky the sky would embrace me. The sea would wash my tears. But whenever clouds burst, I burn. Whenever waves roll, I burn. At the wrong time, these few tears of mine ignite everything, leaving me behind, burning while I'm falling, burning while I'm drowning. The next one is called Seashells. I sit on the beach watching those selling baked potatoes, roasted peanuts, cotton candy, candy apples, lemon slushies, coffee, and tea. Those selling beach toys with their colorful carts, the horses and camels, the children riding them. I wait for them to pass by me, for a photo at least. These are the Gazans of the sea. The beach belongs to them. With them, the sea gets up. With them, the sea lies down. There, as the sun sets, whenever I hold a seashell to my ear, I hear their tears crashing through the waves. The next poem is called Waves Within Me. From the noise and chaos, I flee to feel you, your breeze, the only sound I want to hear, your waves, the only shape I want to see. But I can't bring myself to swim in you or even fly over you. I'll linger on the beach, for I fear both joy and sorrow. Your waves within me, unfathomable, yet unforgettable. The next one is called Waving. Only when I am on the beach do I remember the clouds in the sky. Some of them got here before me, some arrived with me, but after a while we'll let the sea be alone as it was, waving back to his memory. And the last one is called A Gray Man from a Gray Land. I go to the sea holding my own hand, a gray man from a gray land, no jasmine in my pocket to offer the beach. I go for a celestial cinema, deferred prayer, a cursed childhood. I go to look for those who go to the sea by themselves, but there I freeze on my chair. I don't dare walk side by side with all these waves. There, I freeze on my chair. Nothing else a gray man can do, facing all these blues. Thank you.
What I love about Yahya's work is it's so like minimalist in a way that like is almost unforgettable. I think when bringing his work into the Heaven Looks Like Us Palestinian poetry anthology that Noor and I are publishing with Haymarket, um, it's just like the poems of his were so easy to string together. He's actually one of the only poets whose poems we lumped all together in the anthology. Like, I think a lot of the poets are spread out throughout the anthology, but with Yahya's, it's almost like all of the minimalist lines and images just connect to each other in such an interesting way that we had to just keep them all together. And so now I'm seeing the sea, and every poem that you read like kind of retouched the sea and returned to that image. So just thank you, Yahya, for
Thank you so much, George. I deeply appreciate that.
yes. And inshallah his book will be coming to you all soon. Inshallah we'll have some news on that. So I'm now introducing our next poet, another amazing beloved. It's really great when the Mizna family gets to publish our 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 the people who've worked for Mizna. And now with like Yahya, for example, being a Mizna fellow and editor, and now we have the honor of welcoming back into our pages Ruba El Melik, who is a writer and researcher from Sudan, invested in exploring African expression beyond institutional walls. In the publishing sphere, her work has included editing for the literary journal Mizna. Her writing can be found in Endaria, Africa Is Now, and LOLWE. I think Lolwe. I don't know if that's an acronym or Yololwe. She's the co-author of this amazing book you all need to check out, Undoing Resistance, Authoritarianism and Attacks on the Arts in Sudan's 30 Years of Islamist Rule, which came out in 2022, also co-authored with the journalist Rima Bass. And there's so much I can say about Ruba's amazing work, and I just want to. I know that with the QR codes officially, there are two organizations here, the PCRF and Palestine Legal Fund, that you all should donate to. But I really, really, really want to take a moment and emphasize, hopefully we'll emphasize this in the chat, to donate to Sudan Solidarity Collective, which is at sudansolidarity.com. The collectivizing of the mutual aid can make it go like a long, long, long way. So I really encourage you, every single person on this stream, please, please, please go and donate to that. And it's just really an honor to have Ruba El Melik here, and give it up for Ruba.
Thank you, George. That was really, really sweet. A great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today and to read with you all. And thank you to whoever is tuning in. I'm going to be reading two poems from Mizna's Catastrophe issue and an excerpt from my essay, Let Me Haunt, published in Acacia magazine, that I think will be very relevant in explaining some things about the war in Sudan. So let me begin. This is No New Souls. Do you hate me, and am I a bad writer? Is it simple to forget me even after you've loved me? Do I peel and fade if held to the sun, like a puckered first coat of paint? Maybe you know already. I slipped past all of God's bouncers to be here. Ran right past them, jumped into the world before my time. Petition to put a sign on the door to earth. No new souls, reincarnation only. Here I am by the skin of my teeth. I show up new and clueless every time. When I was little, I used to draw a man with just one leg, a girl with no hands. I dare you to point out what's missing. Why is every question just one question? Just one primordial scream type of question. Who am I to people? Who am I to people? Palm tree v. mortality. All things break or decay is how I justified my father, the hospital bed, the flatline. California trees are dignified. They never lay bare to the world, are never stripped naked, never get panicked by their mortal nature. What eternal heaven is this? They must be dead already. And now I will read from my following essay. This is an excerpt. from the essay Let Me Haunt, and it's set at my cousin's wedding, which was held in Marrakech. And in it, I just reflect on the 1-year anniversary of the war that had erupted April 15th of 2023 in Sudan, which me and my family were in Khartoum at the time and had to leave. So this is from the middle of the essay, and this is how it starts. We discussed what Bayan should wear to the first wedding event the next day. Her high Jimmy Choos, which she had packed in her backpack as she was escaping the war the year before, or a shorter, more comfortable option. You packed that in the middle of the war? I asked her incredulously. Of course, girl. That shit was expensive, Bayan replied. I tried to think about something surprising that I took with me when I left Khartoum after the war started, but nothing came up. In fact, the dresses and shoes I had bought for the wedding almost doubled the size of my closet. It seemed as though I had failed on 2 counts, packing a sufficient amount of my life when I left and building a sufficient amount of life afterward. I knew by now what I would have taken: my dad's watch, my completed journals, but from the items I actually packed as I left my house for the last time, nothing of note. That bothered me. There was so much more of me left behind. Inconspicuous vitamin bottles filled with infused gummy candy, my tattered Afrograd 2018, the Renaissance year college t-shirt that my family begged me to stop wearing around the house, the last bottle of perfume my father ever bought me before he passed away, a pair of gray Nike Cortez that pinched badly at the toes, and a framed photo I took of a violinist in Ad-Damazin, Sudan, serenading me. At the wedding, I spent hours in bed every day, riddled with anxiety. The first day, opening day, I put on my stockings, bra, and pantyhose and shuffled back into bed. I arrived at the party 3 hours late with chipped nails and a wrinkled dress. What did it mean that I needed hours to get out of bed? I was postponing moments that were happening now, too tired to pick them up in the present, just to let them go later. But I couldn't get out of bed. The world was too big. It sent out ripples upon ripples, huge and small. For a long time, life had taken on a tinge of absurdity. A few months after escaping the war, I was in California, watching Taylor Swift and Beyoncé perform during their tours. The fireworks that followed Taylor Swift's concert gave me a panic attack. I sat on the concrete in Santa Clara until the stored cool from the night seeped through my jeans, sticking my thighs to the ground. The city had been legally renamed to Swifty Clara for the duration of her tours run in the city. The fireworks were paid for by the city. Later, I told my therapist, I don't think the panic attack was because of the fireworks. It's definitely because of the fireworks, he said. The next day, I missed the bride's entrance, the sunset ceremony, the parents' speeches. I arrived at the venue, my black dress blending into the night, and immediately got lost, walking along a long, gravelly path in the completely wrong direction until I found myself in the dinner area. Employees were still balancing on chairs to string up the chandeliers and were setting the half-empty table with plates and cutlery. I was so far from where I was supposed to be that they sent me off with one of the staff to take me back to the reception area. I'm allergic to walnuts, one of the guests said to the waiter at the beginning of dinner. The long table was set, the chandeliers were lit, and the employees beyond the eye line. Every single time he set a plate in front of her, she would ask again if it followed her dietary requirements. Not with the air of double-checking that her safety was ensured, but with the air of making sure he had remembered to care. By the third course, the waiter hovered the plate in front of her and received her habitual inquiry. Are you sure it doesn't have walnuts? She asked indignantly. Oh, it's full of walnuts, he said. Just kidding, he winked, setting down the plate, leaving her fuming. I almost burst out laughing. She turned to her friends and angrily said something about the waiter taking this too lightly, how it was disrespectful, how this was life or death. Yeah, that's really not funny, my sister said, sitting next to me at the table. My sister, sitting next to me at the table, commiserated somberly. I leaned into my sister. It's fucking hilarious, I whispered into her ear. The minute my family and I packed our small belongings into our car and drove out of Khartoum, I could no longer eat or drink. Even after we sought shelter in Madani, the safest city near Khartoum, I was still riddled with anxiety. In the room we rented, my mother gave me some bread and water to force down, but my throat couldn't remember the mechanism that allowed me to swallow. We were far away from a familiar home that we left behind in what was now an unfamiliar city. Khartoum had looked like fire and brimstone as we drove away from it. I was haunted by one image in particular. An abandoned bus on the side of the road, parked at a tilt, with its windows shattered and the driver's door flung open. But it terrified me that there was nobody and no bodies. I could see the scene. The bus driver stopped on the street by militia, the driver's door flung open, the man pulled out and shot while soldiers swarmed the back of the bus, shattered the windows, feeding off the trouble. In Medani, we developed a daily ritual. Every night, we took everything we had packed in our car up 5 steep flights of stifling hot stairs, then brought it back down with us each morning as we headed out. We left every day with the same mission: get seats on a bus out of Medani. We were trying to head east toward Sudan so we could negotiate, beg, bribe, or plead our way onto a ship out of the country. A few days later, we would score tickets on a bus driving 20 hours straight to Sudan. The tickets were as follows: 3 real ones, 1 seat on a step inside the bus, and 1 person, my brother, rode shamma'a, the slang word for people who stood the entire drive with their arm hanging on the rail above them like a coat hanger. But on that particular day, no luck. Reaching the 4th floor with a faint buzz in my head, I suddenly felt lightheaded and on the edge of consciousness. "I'm so hot, I can't breathe," I gasped, sitting on the stairs, dark spots spilling into my peripheral vision. My family fanned me, concern etched into their faces. In those days, we were all constantly braced to encounter fits of violence, weakness, illness, tears, worry, anger. Bayan had texted me every morning in Morocco, inviting me to the souk with them, but I declined. The last time I had been to a souk, it was Souk Durman in Khartoum, now burnt to the ground. But here I was anyway. Here we all were, amongst mixed family and friends, celebrating and witnessing a love my cousin grew. Here I was 1 year later, softly glittering in my black dress at the edge of everyone's vision. And that's the end of the excerpt. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruba. Oh my gosh, is that essay published anywhere? I mean, I want to read the full thing. This is just took me elsewhere. I really want to read the full thing. Oh my goodness.
It's published in Acacia magazine, another amazing journal that's leftist and Muslim. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, awesome! Can't wait to look. This is the first thing when I'm off the call. Thank you, Ruba. Again, it's just so. I want to shout out to the beautiful, amazing Black Sawana issue that Ruba took the lead on. Was a lead director on and guest edited with Safia Hello. Truly, just a part of Mizna history, honestly, that lives with us and that paved so many ways forward, I think, for us. Just really grateful to have Ruba back, and the designer for this issue, Ahmed Akasha, also was the designer for this issue too. So it's a really incredible lineage that's emerging, and now with the Gaza takeover folio as well, there's a kind of there's a lineage coming out. So anywho, everyone give it up for Ruba one more time. The next person I'm honored to be introducing is the great poet we had the pleasure of meeting at Palestine Rights, Olivia Elias. She was born in Haifa in 1944. She is a poet of the Palestinian diaspora who writes in French, translated into Arabic, Spanish, Italian, Brazilian, Portuguese, and Japanese. Her work has been published in numerous reviews. In November 2022, with Chaos Crossing, which is right here, translated by the amazing Kareem James Abu Zaid, was shortlisted for the Sarah Maguire 2024 International Poetry Prize. It is also her English debut. In September 2023, she published Ton nom de Palestine, Your Name Palestine, a chapbook translated by Sarah Riggs and Jeremy Victor Robert. for the World's Poetry. And I remember reading that chapbook right because I bought it at Palestine Rights, and then right when October 7th, and the escalation of genocide broke out, it was like the first poetry book I feel like I could stomach reading, honestly. And I remember turning to Olivia's words during that moment, and it's an honor to be here with Olivia. She will be reading in French, and I will be reading her poems in English. So we'll be flipping back and forth. So everyone, give it up for Olivia.
Thanks a lot, George. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and thank you for inviting me. So I read the first poem is two poems from Chaos, and the other ones will be from the new MS. Will be published in May this year. In May this year by a nice editor in France, and it's already translated in English. So it will be after that published in the States. Feu de la brûlure. Je suis né en ce temps éruptif où mon pays changeait de nom. Je suis né en ce temps sismique qui engloutissait jusqu'au nom de mon père et du père de son père. La terre tremble toujours et l'ombre de la prison s'étend. J'ai grandi sur le volcan d'une terre d'expiation, élue par un dieu surgi d'un buisson ardent. Ces geysers de sang illuminent la nuit sauvage. Combien de temps encore, corps et âme brûlés au feu de la brûlure.
Flame of fire. I was born in this eruptive time when my country's name was changed. I was born in this time, seismic time, that engulfed even the name of my father and his father's father. The land is still shaking, and the prisoner's shadow grows longer. I grew up on a volcano of a land of atonement, a land chosen by a god who emerged from a burning bush. Eruptions of blood still light up the savage night. How much longer must body and soul remain in the flame of fire?
Art poétique de la sauvagerie. Tout est littérature, affirmait Pessoa, qui réclamait. Traduction, s'il vous plaît. Sauvagerie s'est imposée, l'art poétique de la sauvagerie, car comment dire cela s'il est si dur, blessure chauffée à blanc? Si trouver les mots dirait comment, dans les convulsions de l'histoire et les grands malheurs qui s'ensuivirent, par concrétisation de combinaisons aléatoires de particules virtuelles et réelles, ils cherchèrent un temps uni du côté de l'Afrique et de l'Amérique latine. Surgit cet autre grand malheur, suprématisme infiltré dans cheval de Troie, pourtant non démocratie. Définitions appartiennent aux définisseurs, disait Toni Morrison, pas aux définis. Existence carcérale dans l'œil des missiles ou le viseur des fusils, menacé de cachot par édit de l'empire mandataire, celui sur lequel le soleil jamais ne se couchait, et des possessions par invocation du nom du sultan. Si au matin à l'aube, tu sortais du village et marchais jusqu'à une terre où l'on n'entende ni coq chanter, ni voix humaine, alors cette terre sera tienne. And this edit from the time of the Sultan is still activated by the Israelis apartheid regime today to confiscate Palestinian lands, which will be after that ceded to the colonies.
Wow. Thank you for that. This is from the new manuscript, The Mount Overlooking the Sea. The Poetic Art of Savagery. Everything is literature, Pessoa said, while asking, translations, please. Savagery has imposed itself, the poetic art of savagery, for how to say this, so ugly, so hard, a white-hot wound, If I could find the words, I would say how among the upheavals of history and great disasters that followed, through realizations of random combinations of virtual and real particles, for a time they sought a nest in Africa, in Latin America. This other great disaster arose, supremacism concealed in a Trojan horse named democracy. Definitions belong to the definers, not the defined, Toni Morrison said. Prison existence in the eyes of missiles or the sights of rifles, threatened with jail by edict of mandatory empire on which the sun never, in dispossession by invocation of the Sultan's name. If at dawn one morning you left the village and walked to reach a place where no human voice or crowing cock can be heard, that land will be yours.
Rien à voir. This one is also for Chaos, from Chaos. Serre autour de nous les cercles de l'enfer. Haïfa ne sera pas Grenade. Dans une mer de feu, notre cri de cristal à la face du soleil. Tant peine que cœur contienne, tant longue la nuit des longs couteaux, et si lente aube à naître. And this poem was inspired by the poetical autobiography of Derek Walcott. In a poem, he evokes the collective suicide of 40 families which occurred in the time of the French colonization in the island of the Caribbean, which is called Grenade. It's not Grenade from Spain, where 40 families together, all parents, children, they all jumped in the sea because they couldn't bear anymore the cruelty of the French colonization. And this only, the expression cri de cristal inspired the whole poem.
Wow. From like mandate history to French colonial history in the Caribbean. Wow. It's just all these poems. I think that's one of the things I love most about Olivia's poems is this taking us to these moments in history. This one was one of my favorites from Chaos Crossing too. Nothing to do. Hooligans and pirates tighten the circle of hell around us. God has nothing to do with it. To escape to the realm of myths and legends. Haifa won't be Grenada, and we won't give you that gift of jumping off the cliff into the sea of fire, our crystal city in the face of the sun. So much pain the heart contains. So long this night of long knives, and so slow this dawn to rise.
Thank you, George. Yes, we will not give them this gift of our collective suicide. Just the contrary. We are here and we will remain here. And we are struggling for our liberation. Cela commence toujours par les mots Gaza, 24 novembre 2024. Le 40e jour est passé, sa nuit de même. La colombe n'est pas revenue. S'est-elle perdue dans le brouillard phosphorique? Se vit-elle de son sang, elle brisée dans les décombres? Dans le ciel zigzaguent les boules de feu et s'effondrent les maisons. Brûle le feu, bouillonne chaudron, chantent les sorcières fatidiques. Le sang appelle le sang et la mort se nourrit de la mort. Cela commence toujours par des mots. Leur bouche, rampe de lancement de missiles, crachagés continus, condamnations à mort. Terroristes, tous sans exception, graines de terroristes jusque dans le ventre de leur mère. Brûle le feu, bouillonne chaudron, chante le cœur fatidique. Tondre le gazon, aplanir le paysage, le stériliser. Cela commence toujours par des mots. Stériliser le langage, stériliser la vie, du verbe latin rapere, s'emparer de force, encager la vie, le langage, les violer, les cribler de balles. Au-dessus du ghetto en flammes, frénétiquement dansent les déesses de la vengeance et de la conquête. Double, double peine et trouble chantent les sorcières. À des milliers de kilomètres de là, réfugiée dans ma maison, je lève parfois la tête et regarde au dehors. La lumière est si belle qu'elle en semble irréelle. L'horreur n'a-t-elle pas de fond, jusque comme l'enfer? And this poem was in the Catastrophe issue of Mizna. I am very proud that it is there.
And this one reminds me of a poem we published by Nyla Matuk last February, where she starts with the phrase, I'll do to language what they did to my people. And this is Olivia's poem. It always starts with words. Millions of heart suns, laser beams, millions of drum hearts, bubbles of pure energy. The killing machine will explode from its own inhumanity. Radical compassion. One day we will be. The 40th day is over, and so is its night. The dove didn't return. Did she lose her way in phosphoric smog? Is she bleeding to death, wings broken under rubble? Fireballs zigzagging in the sky and houses collapsing. Fire, burn, and cauldron bubble, sing the fateful witches. Blood will have blood, and death feeds on death. It always starts with words. Their mouths, missiles launch pads, spit in steady streams, death sentences. Terrorists, all of them without exception. Terrorists in the making, even in their mother's wounds. Fire, burn, and cauldron bubble, sings a fateful chorus. Mowing the lawn, flattening the landscape, sterilizing it. It always starts with words. Sterilizing language, sterilizing life. Ravishing it from the Latin verb raper, taking by force, caging life, language, raping them, riddling them with bullets. Above the ghetto in flames frantically dance the goddesses of vengeance and conquest. Double, double, toil and trouble, sing the witches. Thousands of miles from there, a refugee in my home, I sometimes raise my head and look outside. The light is so beautiful it seems unreal. Does horror have no bottom, just like hell?
Moulinés autour de l'autel de la guerre, certains perdent le goût, le sens du goût ou de l'odorat, parfois les deux à la fois. Moi, ai perdu le sens du temps, littéralement. Confonds les jours, les heures, hier, avant-hier, avant-avant-hier, aujourd'hui, demain, après-demain. Tout se mélange, secondes, minutes, années, siècles. Était-ce hier Adair, Yassine, Génine, Sabra et Shatila? Ou aujourd'hui, en ces temps cannibales, jamais rassasiés de carcasses et de cadavres? 8 mois bientôt, fume toujours le bûcher du sacrifice, alimenté par la machine à livrer non-stop, milliards de dollars et bombes de 900 kilos, tandis que grand chef mouline veto à répétition autour de la guerre, de l'autel de la guerre et de la conquête. Boum, 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 confusion totale du jour et de la nuit. Boum, 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 boussole morale, justice à terre, nos vies avec.
Milling around the altar of war. Some lose their sense of taste or smell, sometimes both at once. I lost the sense of time, mixed up days, hours, yesterday, the day before that, today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. It all gets mixed up. Second, minute, year, century? Was it yesterday in Deir Yassin, Jenin, Sabra and Shatila, or today in these cannibal times never filled up on carcasses and corpses? Nearly 8 months, still smoking, the pier of sacrifice, fueled by the machine delivering nonstop billions of dollars in 900-kilogram bombs, while great chief Mills vetoes ad libitum around the altar of war and conquest. Boom, boom, boom. Total confusion of day and night. Boom, boom, boom. Moral compass, justice, shattered, along with our lives.
Jour de désolation. Écrire en dedans est-il recommandé? Comprendre, garder une distance. Quel en dehors lorsque le dedans tellement réduit en miettes, tellement explosé qui tient tout entier dans une tente. Depuis si longtemps, une éternité. Gaza déclarée zone de mort. Je cherche et n'en peux plus de chercher et de ne pas trouver 4 murs, un toit dessus de la tête pour dormir sans crainte de mourir au milieu de la nuit. 4 murs, un toit dessus, une maison qui tiendrait debout, un pays qui tiendrait debout sur ses terres ancestrales, une vie de même valeur que celle de tout autre. Refaat, tu nous as fait ce cadeau pour le jour d'après. Un cerf-volant cousu de mots d'amour et d'espoir, confectionné avec une pièce de tissu blanc et un bout de ficelle acheté au marché. Les jours de désolation dans les villes que je traverse, je tiens la ficelle dans la main et le regarde danser, libre, libre.
Wow. Desolate days. Writing from outside is recommended. Understand, maintain a distance. Which outside, when inside so crushed, so devastated it all fits into a tent? For so long now, an eternity, Gaza declared a death zone. I search for, and can't stand any more to search, and not find 4 walls, a roof above my head, to sleep without fear, fearing to die in the middle of the night. 4 walls, a roof, a house that would stand up, a country that would stand up on its ancestral land, a life as precious as any other. Refat, you gave us this gift for the day after, a kite stitched with words of love and hope, made with a piece of white cloth and some string bought at the market. On desolate days, in the cities I walk across, holding the string in my hand, I watch it dancing, free, free.
Lorsque l'on tire un fil, pourtant, aujourd'hui, en plein cœur de l'innommable, c'est qu'extrême faiblesse viendra à bout d'extrême violence enivrée d'elle-même. Aussi insuffisants soient les mots, c'est que le tissu d'éléments de langage cousus de fil blanc et de poudre aux yeux au raccord de plus en plus apparent se défera. Il suffit de tirer un fil, tout vient avec. Nus, les nouveaux rangs, leurs oripeaux ensanglantés partout, éparpillés dans les dunes de sable.
Is this what When Pulling a Thread, Olivia? Is this the poem When Pulling a Thread?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. I couldn't follow along with the translation as much. Okay. When pulling a thread. And yet, today, in the heart of the unspeakable, I know extreme weakness will overcome extreme power, drunk with itself. However inadequate, the words I know The fabric of elements of language sewn with lies and smoke screams its joints, more and more visible, will unravel. When pulling a thread, everything comes with it, naked. The Nukhans, their rags soaked in blood, strewn all over the sand dunes.
And the last one, which like it's going in the same direction that when we pull a thread. Yes, I say I know that extreme weakness will overcome extreme strength, extreme violence. Radicale compassion. Millions de cœurs soleil, rayons laser. Millions de cœurs tambours, bulles d'énergie pure. La machine à tuer implosera de son inhumanité. Radicale compassion. Un jour, nous serons.
I think that this one was cut and pasted earlier into the beginning of your other poem, but here, we'll read it again because it's so beautiful. Millions of heart suns, laser beams, millions of drum hearts, bubbles of pure energy. The killing machine will explode from its own inhumanity. Radical compassion. One day we will be. Thank you all so much. And thank you. It's so hard to contain myself as like just co-reading with you, because even just hearing you in French, I'm just like, and like the poems are just just say un petit peu de français. So I can hear little fragments, and
you read so well. Thank you.
And the poem about Rafat too, I'm just, oh my God, like the day that the news of Habibi Rafat, Allah yarhamu, his assassination, I was supposed to be reading at a poetry event that night, and I canceled it because I just couldn't. I just couldn't stand to be, in any space but a space for him. And I don't know any poet in our community who wasn't just grieving, and still isn't grieving. And I'll hear on my desk side, if you all, his collected volume just came out in English, the If I Must Die, Poetry and Prose. And so I really, really recommend everyone to look at his works. And a lot of it is like his notes as a teacher, his notes about his students in his classrooms. And it's really, again, it just really is touching. And Muhammad al-Kurd says in his new book that Rifat, instead of like the bar, which is in hell and just descending, instead of like going above the bar, he raised the ceiling of what's possible. And he is someone who we all need to look up to for how to ask harder questions of liberation. And when they go down, we go up even higher, and that's what Olivia's poems, I think, do for us as well. So thank you so much, dear Olivia. And I can't wait for this new book. All the poems from the new book were just unspeakable. And just, I'm so, yes, grateful to be alive on this earth with you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
Of course. Up next, oh man, I can't even. Up next, I have the honor of introducing Leila Mansouri, who, when I tell you, I've never had a short, like, I'm a poet. I'm very derogatory to fiction. I will admit it. I am, I love nonfiction. I love poetry. Fiction, it's like you have to really, 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 really wow me to get me to even look at a short story or a novel, let alone a fucking novel. And when I tell you this short story, just the entire reading process, we're all like, this is the short story we have been waiting for so long. One of the biggest honors I've ever had at Mizna is publishing Flashbang by Leila Mansouri. And Leila Mansouri, who is an Iranian-American fiction writer, essayist, and literary critic. Her creative work focuses on the Iranian-American and Sawana American diasporas and has appeared in The Offing, The Believer, Roayet, Nowruz, and elsewhere. Please give it up as an honor to be here with Leila Mansouri.
Thank you so much, George, for that incredible introduction. Also, thank you to everyone at Mizna for inviting me, and the Arab American National Museum for hosting this, and all of the incredible people and organizations who have been putting together this Words for Palestine series. It's really an honor to be here with all of you and to share this stage with such incredible writers. I'll be reading a brief section from the story that George just so graciously introduced. It's a challenging story to excerpt because there are a lot of plots happening. One of the things I was thinking about as I was trying to decide what to read is what I love about Mizna as a literary space is that it brings Swana writers and work together, not in this way that homogenizes us, not in a way that is contained by borders, but that really lets our work refract and our stories speak to one another. So I hope this excerpt speaks to the spirit of that. What you need to know for this section is that the narrator, who is Iranian American and grew up in the United States, had something traumatic happen in college that would fall under the general umbrella of sexual harassment, or maybe now what we would call revenge porn. She's never had clear language to talk about it, and even at the time didn't have access to important facts. So she's actually just avoided talking about it at all. And this passage picks up in the middle of an encounter with a Palestinian therapist in Michigan. It's part of an emergency one-off session that was supposed to be about something else entirely. And the narrator, without planning or intending to, has started blurting out a jumbled account of what she suspects happened. That's how I discovered the thing that had been buried so deep I hadn't known it was there. The thing that had been lodged in me all these years. The thing that had held everything in place, even when I hadn't known there was anything to hold. What I really believed even though it made no sense, believed even though I was sure it meant I was crazy, was that it was me and Bijan on that tape, and it was somehow Jeff who filmed it. But that's too far-fetched, I said. I mean, yes, Jeff could have planted something, a camera. That day he was in my room for the class project. It was absurd, but not completely impossible. He was military, after all, a Marine. He could have figured out the tech. But how could I look anyone in the eye and say that that was what I suspected, that I was sure of it to my core, even though it sounded like a conspiracy? No one would have believed me. They shouldn't have believed me. The story didn't hold together. Some guy in my Farsi class films a secret sex tape after I refused to eat his dates? Who would listen? Who could take that seriously? It was easier to say nothing and forget. Dr. El-Masri was quiet for a while. Across the cafeteria, someone sneezed. Bleached air burned in my throat. It doesn't sound crazy, though, she said, finally. What? Really? I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying I could believe it. I was sure she was mocking me and couldn't say so, not when she'd been so patient, not when I'd been calling her Dr. El-Masri this whole time. I wrinkled my nose and raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? She looked away toward the privacy curtain. My mother was born in Ain al-Hilweh. That's a camp in southern Lebanon, she said. My mother grew up around guards and soldiers, and what she always told me was to watch out most for the friendly ones, the ones that offer help and candy. They were the most dangerous. I reminded her that this wasn't Lebanon, that I'd been in college, not a refugee camp. I had missed the point, she told me. Listen, when I was a kid, one year my mom took me to the state fair, me and my brothers. We'd been asking, I guess. Maybe someone at school went. My mom had her hair covered and people were staring, but she didn't care. She took us to the Ferris wheel. She got us fried ice cream. She even let us pet the goats. She wanted us to enjoy it, to feel like we were normal, and we did. We rode the rides and played those whack-a-whatever games. I won a stuffed shark. My brother won a stuffed donkey. The whole day was great, perfect really, until we got in line for the spinning teacup ride. That's when this guy started talking to us, to me mostly. He had a woman with him too, but she didn't say anything, not at first. And he kept asking me things like, what was my favorite subject and what kind of ice cream did I like? And did I want to be a pop star or a movie actress when I grew up? He hardly spoke to my brothers and wouldn't even look at my mom. And he kept bringing up that he was a soldier, that he'd met girls like me before in Iraq. He'd fought for those girls, he kept saying, little ones, some that didn't go to school, some that didn't have toys or electricity or shoes. I didn't like him and didn't like his stupid questions and really didn't like how white curls peeled up all over his sunburned nose. So I was relieved when the line moved and my brothers and I got in our teacup and the man didn't get on with us. He disappeared while our teacup spun. I thought it was over. I forgot about him. But after the ride, he found us. He had ice cream cones now for me and my brothers. I didn't want one. I was sick from the spinning and the heat and the elephant ears. But I thought I had to eat. When someone offers you food, you take it. That's what my mom had always insisted. So I reached my hand out and felt the cone in my fingers. And then, all of a sudden, my mother slapped it away. It fell and splattered. The ice cream was everywhere. The ground, my brother's shoes, my ankles. I didn't understand. I didn't know what I'd done. I started crying. It was my fault, I was sure. I couldn't see how, but that didn't matter. And then the girlfriend started ranting about how my mom was a bitch and we were all ungrateful. We should be sent back, she screamed over and over. We hated America. We hated freedom and God. My mom was walking us away by then, walking us out of the fair. But all I could hear was the girlfriend. That's right, she screamed after us. Go back where you came from. And when I turned to look behind me, the soldier was just standing there, staring at us like he didn't know what to say, like he didn't understand what had happened either. I stared back at the ice cream cones in his fists, at the two he hadn't given me, the ones he got from my brothers. They were melting already. They were losing their shape in the sun. I remember watching as they dripped, watching as the white ran down his knuckles. My mom waited until we were out of the parking lot to start yelling. You don't let these people give you things, she shouted over and over. Never. You don't take anything from them. Not money, not ice cream, nothing. Back then, I didn't understand. My mom must be a little crazy, I thought. I mean, it was just ice cream. I couldn't see what the big deal was. Now, though, I think she was right. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. I think she understood more than she knew how to tell us. I took a slow breath. So you're saying I was right to suspect Jeff? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe he was dangerous. Maybe Bijan was too. What I'm saying is you didn't know. You still don't. So? Dr. Al-Masri looked like she wanted to shake me, like she wanted to grab me by the shoulders and rattle something loose. So why didn't you ask for help? Why did you try to handle it all on your own? The question landed in me like a mortar shell. It would have killed my parents, I said. They came all this way for me. I couldn't let them find out it was dangerous here also. Dr. Al-Masri looked at me so kindly that I hated her. Did you ever think they might already know that? Thank you.
That part of like, I couldn't let them know it was dangerous here, like, changed my brain chemistry the first time I read that. Like, Oh, anywho, sorry, I'm like emotional right now. Thank you so much, Leila. I cannot wait to be lining up outside of the store. Like, do people still do that at Barnes and Noble at like midnight, the night their like favorite novel comes out or something? Like the day that Leila Mansouri has a short story collection, book, any kind of book length work, novel of any sorts out in the world, I will be metaphorically, if not literally, that person lined up at midnight. So thank you so much. And yeah, I will now compose myself to introduce our next second to last reader. Gosh, this all flew by so fast. Oh my goodness. It's really great when being one of the joys of being an editor is being introduced to like new writers who like you should have known and you should have been reading, and just we all, this person is in Canada, and so even just the weird disconnect between the US and the Canada scenes is really sad, and is something I think the US side definitely needs to be better at working at. And so it's a shame that this is the first time I heard of this poet, but Nyla Matuk, whose books are published in so-called Canada. Her work has appeared in journals and anthologies, including the Poetry Review, the New Yorker Poetry, New Poetry's Six, the Best Canadian Poetry. She's writing a third collection, Archive, and a novel, Leila and Khaled, those are both working titles. She lives in Teotihuacan, or also known as Montreal. And again, it's such an honor to be hearing you read for the first time and to be publishing you. And again, the greatest joy is now like here are 5 new books by Nyla Matuk I need to go in order. Having been again lucky enough to read and publish her work. So without further ado, give it up for Nyla Matuk, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, George. That's very kind. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you so much to Mizna and Palestine Rights and the Arab American National Museum for this event, for inviting me and for especially putting me in the Catastrophe issue. I'm really honored. These are phenomenal poets and writers, so I'm really happy to be here. I want to read 3 poems. I'll leave the Mizna issue poem to the last. The 3 of them are all published. The first one came out in 2023 in Poetry Ireland Review. And all 3 poems are going into my new collection that I'm still working on. George mentioned the novel. It's actually going to be published by House of Anansi Press in 2026, Leila and Khaled. So I'm very excited about that. So the first poem is called Prospects. If you look closely, rubies reveal themselves, evidence of history and glory. Ottoman trade routes, crossed sandjacks, strongman fiefdoms under a perplexing pearlescence, sky of summer fires, white light, and entitlement. A country must be understood for its pagan and ancient history. Ugarit city, after Gilgamesh, thousands of years elapsed between them, is remixed as a Bedouin shepherd boy discovers the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're ordered to respect our oppressors, the terror of whose fictions create facts on the ground of our elders. Neither in poetry nor in politics is it permissible to be bitter, cynical. Presence of absence, Mahmoud is mourning, a century of Palestine mourning. The shadow of mothers grieving, color mourning as sorrow, gauzy curtain of evaporated powder. Geography is our witness. We know a walk through the wadi is a walk through the wadi. We see what we see. We saw what we saw. The next poem I want to read is called On Palaces, and it's sort of a discursive piece that I wrote during the uprising in Sheikh Jarrah in 2021, and I was happy to see that it was accepted at the Poetry Review in the autumn issue of that year. On palaces. I may regret abandoning Norman O. Brown's Love's Body. I was reading about patriarchy, the love and death drives, the way Marx and Freud explained them and weaponized such long chains of command, the civilizing discourse against a mission civilisatrice that has excused the killing of millions. I saw the boulevards lined with linden trees designed with great zeal by that capricious actor who applied himself with such fervor as the Marquise of O's lover, his assurances that new projects were in the offing and complete proven highly successful. Baudrillard claimed the horror of dying in the World Trade Center towers no worse than having to go to work in them every day. The owners of the Al Amawi Eastern and Western palaces demolished them during the British Mandate. The Rabah Effendi Al Husseini Palace was turned into the American Colony Hotel. The palace of Salim bin Hussein Al Husseini became the Dar al Tifl Al Arabi, the house of Arab children, where the orphans of Deir Yassin, the only massacre documented in Time magazine, came to live. Al-Mufti Tahir al-Husseini Palace, established by the son of the Mufti of Jerusalem, became a cultural venue. The chairman of the Education Council, Ismail Haqqi al-Husseini, built the Orient House Palace in 1897. It hosted Wilhelm II, Emperor of Germany and King of Prussia, and his wife, Augusta Victoria. It housed King Abdullah and Prince Zayd of Saudi Arabia, Haile Selassie, Emperor of Ethiopia, and his wife, Empress Menan, after their exile. It was the funeral site of many martyrs of 1948. It was a hotel. It housed the United Nations Relief Works Agency, then the Palestine Liberation Organization, and was eventually pillaged by the occupier of its 17,000 books in both English and Arabic, dozens of periodicals, and the private papers of Musa al-Alami, the documents of the Arab Higher Committee of the Palestinian Army al-Jihad al-Muqaddas, and others. Photographs and private papers, glass negatives of the Ottoman period, and a fine collection of family photographs. I should have mentioned before I started that poem that I don't speak Arabic, and so apologies for the probably terrible pronunciations. So the last poem I want to read is called Departure, and it's in the Catastrophe issue. Departure. We climbed to the top of Jabal al-Karmil, noticing ourselves dizzily above the bay. I wondered in my drowse if we could see Empire, star of the sea atop Stella Maris, a canticle, a beam of light, cantilevering over my mind. Like Rimbaud, we drank the milk of comets, touching cresting white caps, in the onrushing frequency of waves, rinsing an inaudible history of abandonment. Only an idea of return, not return. There will be time to walk with him again one day through the sun-dazzled rhinestones at Ras an Nakura, our belonging, one belonging, mirror to mirror. Leaving, I saw how the river shimmered right back at the sea. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh my goodness gracious. Thank you so much. Like, I'm just sitting here like, what? I literally, like, not even joking, ordered both of the books that are available right now by you while you were reading. So go check them out ASAP. You can get them in the US pretty easily. So thank
Thanks,
you.
George. Thank
That,
you. Thank you.
that is just, oh, that last poem was just, again, not the return, the idea of return. So many lines just. You and Olivia also both invoking the Mandate Palestine era, which is so interesting. I'm teaching a class now at Amherst College that's kind of like reading the Palestinian historical timeline through like literary works on like Ottoman, then British Mandate, then Nakba, then Nexa, then etc. The entire like historical timeline of Palestine, and it's just like, I don't know, it all goes back to like fuck the British Empire. Like there's a kind of whole like that is like the core of like, I don't know. So many of my students in this class are like non-Palestinian, but the handshake among all of us are like, oh, my colonized people from XYZ lands we're all just like fuck the British Empire. But anywho, and so yeah, now y'all got me spiraling off into Mandate history. But thank you again for just
Thank you.
taking us there. And I can't believe we're at the end, y'all. It's our last, another incredible reader who I have an honor of introducing, who I will fangirl about for a little bit because her graphic novel Squire. So I'm just like, the whole thing is just like product placement, tee. And I'm like, oh, kicking myself that I don't have Ruba's like book right now to do this with too. But anywho, Nadia Shammas is an award-winning multidisciplinary Palestinian American writer, best known for her work in comics, video games, and prose. That's a really funny way to be like, Teehee, not a poet, but anywho, we see you, even though she has poems in this issue. Amazing poems. She dreams of returning to her childhood home in Bethlehem in a free Palestine. She asks you not to read this passively, and I ask all of you not to listen to this legend that we have here passively. Give it up for Nadia Shammas.
Oh my goodness, from the icon George Abraham. Thank you very much. It's actually pretty funny, that call out specifically, because the truth is that in undergrad, I did go to undergrad specifically for poetry. I did want to be a poet before I entered any other kind of medium, but I honestly had a really bad experience in my college poetry department. I was kind of the only person of color, I believe, in that department at the time. And I found myself losing a lot of faith in my ability to write. And so it's funny, I ended up kind of starting then in comics as an editor, or because I didn't really believe that of all the people to write in the world, would it really be me to be able to do it? No, of course not. And that was what I thought at the time. I do not think that anymore. But ultimately, I feel a lot of joy to come back to poetry, especially with Mizna, because I think that before October 7th, the thing that I had not realized about myself, maybe kind of creatively or altogether, was how I had let my conviction in what return means and what liberation means, in what is possible within it, kind of wane far too much. I had let it like wane within what myself thought was creatively and also what I believed the world could look like. And so, since then, I've been trying to do a really kind of radical return of my own. And some of that has been, engaging with a lot of indigenous kin here and where I am. And some of it is very much about my return as a creative. And the truth is that I've always been a visual creative, and poetry is just as visual as anything else. Of course, I ended up in comics. Poetry are the same. So it means a lot to me to kind of, return to poetry, which was the first thing, my first love in writing, and to do it with all of these unbelievable people at Mizna who I've been longtime fans of. So I'm going to start by reading two poems that were in the Catastrophe issue. And for both of them, the title kind of goes into the poem. So I'll say that the title of the first one is I Am Singing Because I'm Burning. And here I go. I am singing because I am burning, a torch in the hand of someone else, getting heavier. I want it to be iron, something forged or made to last. If I must burn, let me be a comet, not crashing, but blazing, shooting bright. All the words I've heard someone say. The difference between something beautiful and a disaster is grace in the execution. Tell me a diamond in the rough is still rough, and I'll say, love is hard. I am hard. I am hitting the ground, running. If a star falls and a comet shoots, and if a leaf falls and the other shoe drops, if a star falls and you tell me crashing is just part of it, then I hope I made it look good, darling. Watch ash leave behind something in my shape, soft and fine, that coats the hands. I wonder, is this the only way I can be soft? I've heard you say devastation is natural. Fire helps to purge an overgrown and blighted wood. Ash covers scorched earth. New things grow. I want to come back pure and uncomplicated, soft and pale green, small and tender leaves, flower petals, lips gentle where your neck meets your collarbone, so on, so on, so on. You know about softness. You are nothing like me. So that was the first poem, which was honestly probably the first poem that I had tried to write in like 10 years. So I feel like it didn't really make its final coming together actually till, I got to work on it in Mizna. So I'm really thrilled. But the next poem that I'm about to read is one that I did write specifically in response to what was happening in Palestine, where I still have family and relatives, as many of us do. And I had mentioned, I think, just very briefly, that I've been doing a lot of earth work. And, my family, my grandmother's side of the family were farmers in Beit Shala. So that's been really healing to me. So it was really something when the rhetoric started to include language like human animal for Palestinians. And that really struck me because what else could a human be besides an animal? Like, the more time I spend with our plants, the more alive I realize they are, the more I realize that they experience kind of the will to live just as strongly as anyone else. They adapt. And so I thought, what could be more beautiful than being an animal? And what are the ways in which I am or amn't? And so I guess this poem is kind of my reply. So this poem is titled The Human Animal Formerly Known as I. I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. The human animal formerly known as I will become a person. I'll take on a shape you could recognize at first sight. Something that doesn't startle or stutter. Something that doesn't gaze unblinking at something unmoving, refusing, or unwilling, far in the distant past or future. I'll give you something easy to read. Everyone says my eyes remind them of prey. So large, turned down at the corners, and even in my childhood photos, my irises are a black so deep, no light reflects, no pupil, just so cute, you could just bite my head off in one go. People like clear lines, clean walls, a delineation between the pupil's border, and something else I know, You're comforted by rigidity. It's something easy to lean on. Could you imagine being something? Human animal. How could I ever ask for better? If I could only sink to the ground, taste soil with my fingertips, not fear what lies beneath, nor flinch, because the body knows by instinct. The things that crawl and scratch and draw blood, they are my brothers. They mean me no harm. Human animal, could I dream of anything more? To feel something true to the bone between my teeth, only what I can catch, only what I deserve, because I came by it honestly, because blood tastes like forgiveness. Because I am human, I only eat what I've disguised. Human animals, do not mince words, do not choke on air, do not let things die beneath their every footstep, because the land remembers my shape. Could I live without hurting others? I grind my teeth at night. I'm sorry. It's the only thing I can do. Yeah, those are the two poems that came out in the Catastrophe issue. And yeah, like the first poems I think that I've had published probably since college. And I believe that's probably our time if I'm looking at the schedule correctly. So thank you very much for allowing me to read. Thank you to the Arab American Museum, which is a very dear place to me. The first place I went to when I visited Dearborn. So like, if you're ever anywhere near, I highly recommend.
That was like, I was literally texting Lana on Slack in the background. Like, it's like crazy when you like read the poems on the page, but then and you love them, but then you hear them out loud and you're even more like, oh my god, like it's like that was insane. And I can't
Thank you so much.
first, like, yeah, it's so fuck that poetry program. Like, like give me their address. Let me, anyways.
Oh my god, no, we're gonna have an Arab off chat.
Yes.
Evil Arab off chat.
No, believe me, my first year of my MFA program was like hell and made me like, I'm not a poet. And it was actually like a so-called a self-identified Arab faculty who did it. So anywho, it's really it happens. But then Tariq Dobbs came and was like, bitch, you're a poet. And here I am. But anyways.
Thank goodness.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you to everyone tuning in. I think we're gonna get that everyone back on stage now, question mark, from just to kind of send us all off into the evening and morning, wherever you are. It's just, again, a deep honor from the bottom of my heart to be hosting this group of beloveds. Again, the selfish joy of being an editor is like, like, let me curate which poets and prose writers I think would be in conversation. And so you all were the curation for today, but stay tuned. AWP is happening very soon, and Mizna will also have a off-site event there that will feature the Catastrophe issue. I just want to give it up again one more time to the Arab American National Museum, especially to Jacob for the impeccable tech work, to Riwa, who is literally the brains behind this whole series. Like, Riwa has been holding this down for so long, and I just want to give her some love, and to Sahara, who is also just and just really without the three of y'all especially, this would not have happened. And love and flowers to the Arab American National Museum folks and our co-sponsors, Rowie, Radius for American Writers. By the way, Rowie applications for Rowie Fest are coming up. They're due. The extension happened. It's due next week now. So like, get them in. September 5th. We want to see you at Rowie Fest in October in Houston. And I think those are like the main I think I hit the Yahya Gaza folio when I introduced Yahya. I think. Anywho, I'm just kind of going through my head of announcements, but thank you all so much. Please donate to, again, Pal Legal. It's going to be so much. It's already so useful, but it's going to be even more. The amount of work that they're now going to have to do because of this fuckface administration. Anywho, like from genocidal liberals to genocidal conservatives, here we are. It's all fucking genocidal, and it'll be getting worse. So please support Palestine Legal because they are keeping people literally afloat, and PCRF, of course. Also, please, again, cannot emphasize enough, if you see a Gaza mutual aid or GoFundMe, like, please continue to share, please continue to donate. Please, SudanSolidarity.com. Please donate to the Sudan Solidarity Collective. Like, these are mutual aid over organizations, y'all. Please, like, Doctors Without Borders is great, but they don't fucking need another penny from us. Like, mutual aid is what needs our money. Anywho, I'm sorry, preaching to the choir probably, but thank you all so much, and have a lovely evening. And
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.